Hi everyone. Today we're going to be looking into 3 of the most disturbing family cases you've never heard of. The first case we'll be looking at is the Humiston family tragedy, involving an 11-year-old girl who played dead in a family massacre. This story begins in a picturesque lakeside mansion nestled in the quiet community of Falls City, Washington, a place where the Humiston family appeared to live the dream. Their $2 million home radiated warmth and stability, filled with the laughter of 5 children, the love of 2 dedicated parents, and the promise of a bright future. But in the early hours of October 21st, 2024, that dream turned into a nightmare. A single gunshot shattered the silence, setting off a chain of events that would leave 5 family members dead and a town reeling in disbelief. By dawn, the once idyllic home had become the site of one of the most chilling family massacres in modern history. The lone survivor, an 11-year-old girl, endured the unimaginable, playing dead to escape her brother's calculated wrath, and living to expose a horrifying truth. The alleged killer? Her 15-year-old brother, who calmly dialed 911 to weave a web of lies, pointing the blame at someone who could no longer defend themselves. But what could drive a teenager to orchestrate such a betrayal? And what dark secrets were hidden behind the Humiston family's perfect facade? This isn't just a story of heartbreak and survival. It's a chilling look into the depths of resentment and human betrayal. Stay with us as we unravel the haunting tale of the Humiston family tragedy, where bravery met unimaginable horror and the truth struggled to surface. The Humiston family embodied the American dream. Mark, 43, a dedicated electrical engineer, and Sarah, 42, a former nurse turned homeschooling mom, created a nurturing environment for their 5 children in their serene $2 million lakeside mansion in Falls City, Washington. The children, Andrew, 15, Benjamin, 13, sister, let's call her Hope, 11, Joshua, 9, and Catherine, 7, were known for their bright spirits and politeness. Mark's career provided financial security, allowing Sarah to focus on their education and values. The family was active in the community, attending events and connecting with neighbors who admired their warmth and unity. Yet, beneath the idyllic surface, tensions brewed. Andrew, the eldest, struggled with academics and grew increasingly withdrawn. His parents, while loving, held high expectations, which Andrew perceived as oppressive. By October 20th, 2024, the family's life seemed ordinary, but within Andrew, a dark storm was about to erupt, shattering their world forever. Andrew Humiston's struggles had been building quietly but steadily. Once a curious and engaged child, the 15-year-old had grown distant, failing academically and retreating into isolation. Mark and Sarah, while loving and supportive, maintained high expectations. For Andrew, their guidance felt like constant criticism, fueling a growing sense of resentment. The tension came to a head weeks before the tragedy, when Sarah caught Andrew viewing inappropriate content online. Confronted by his parents, Andrew reacted with anger and humiliation. Instead of reconciling, he withdrew further, harboring a deep-seated belief that his parents and siblings were against him. Investigators later found chilling evidence of Andrew's state of mind. Internet searches revealed a fascination with crime scenes and planning, including how to stage a murder-suicide. He knew where his father's Glock pistol was kept, and was the only child with access to the lockbox. What started as frustration had turned into a sinister resolve to silence the pain he blamed on his family. On the night of October 20th, 2024, everything seemed normal. The younger children played and laughed before going to bed, and Mark and Sarah retired early. But Andrew stayed awake, finalizing a plan that would forever change the lives of everyone in the household, and leave an entire community in shock. In the stillness of the early morning hours, on October 21st, 2024, the Humiston home turned into a scene of unimaginable horror. At approximately 4:30 a.m., Andrew unlocked the family's Glock pistol, his movements methodical and determined. He moved first to the basement, where Mark, his father, had fallen asleep on the couch. The first shot shattered the silence, striking Mark in the shoulder. Startled, Mark tried to rise, but 2 more bullets hit him in the back. Fatally wounded, he collapsed at the base of the stairs. Andrew fired a final shot into his neck, ensuring no chance of survival. Nearby, 9-year-old Joshua and 7-year-old Catherine were caught in the chaos. Catherine, frozen in fear, was shot in the head, dying instantly. Joshua, groggy from sleep, met the same fate with a single shot to the forehead. Upstairs, Sarah, awakened by the noise, locked herself in the master bathroom, desperate for refuge. But Andrew was relentless. He forced the door open and confronted his terrified mother. 2 close-range shots ended her life, leaving her crumpled near the bathtub. In another room, 11-year-old Hope was sharing a bunk bed with her sister Catherine. Hearing the chaos, Hope peeked out into the hallway, only to see her father and siblings lifeless. Moments later, Andrew entered her room. Hope froze as he raised the gun and fired twice. One bullet grazed her neck, and the other shattered her hand. Drawing on sheer survival instinct, Hope collapsed onto her bed, pretending to be dead. Andrew, believing his grim task complete, left the room. Seizing the moment, Hope crawled to the fire escape window, pushed herself through it, and ran barefoot to a neighbor's house, leaving a trail of blood behind her. As dawn broke over Fall City, the Humiston home stood in eerie silence. Inside, 5 family members lay dead. Outside, Hope's courage and quick thinking ensured that the truth of that night would eventually come to light. If you're finding this story captivating, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more gripping true crime content. Your support means a lot. Thank you. At 4:55 a.m., Andrew dialed 911. His voice was calm, yet his story was chilling. He claimed that his younger brother Benjamin had killed their family before turning the gun on himself. Andrew described hiding in fear for his life, portraying himself as the sole survivor of a murder-suicide. Just minutes later, another 911 call came through, this time from 11-year-old Hope, who had escaped to a neighbor's house. Bleeding from her neck and hand, she pleaded for help, revealing a starkly different story. "My brother Andrew killed my family," she told the dispatcher, her voice steady despite the terror she had just endured. Police arrived at the Humiston home to find Andrew waiting calmly in the driveway. He appeared cooperative, repeating his fabricated story with unnerving composure. Inside, the mansion had transformed into a scene of unimaginable horror. The bodies of Mark, Sarah, Joshua, and Catherine lay in different parts of the house, all showing signs of execution-style killings. Benjamin's body was staged with a gun placed in his hand, an attempt to frame him as the perpetrator. Meanwhile, paramedics rushed Hope to the hospital, where her injuries were treated. Her account of the events, combined with the inconsistencies in Andrew's story, began to unravel the horrifying truth. The once idyllic mansion had become a house of horrors, and the small community of Fall City awoke to a tragedy that would haunt them forever. The investigation into one of the most chilling family murders in recent history was just beginning. The investigation quickly exposed the cracks in Andrew's fabricated story. Forensic analysts found that the Glock pistol placed in Benjamin's hand was spotless, devoid of the gunpowder residue or fingerprints that would have been present if he had fired it. The trajectory of Benjamin's gunshot wounds also proved they were inflicted from angles impossible for self-infliction. These discrepancies immediately discredited Andrew's claim of a murder-suicide. The turning point came with Hope's testimony. From her hospital bed, the 11-year-old provided a chilling account. She described waking to gunshots and seeing her father and siblings lying motionless in the hallway. She recalled how Andrew entered her room and fired twice, striking her neck and shattering her hand. Her decision to play dead saved her life, as Andrew left the room, believing she was no longer a threat. Hope also revealed how Andrew methodically checked each family member to ensure they were dead before staging the scene to frame Benjamin. Her bravery in recounting these events left no doubt about who was responsible. Adding to the damning evidence, investigators uncovered Andrew's disturbing online search history, which included terms like how to stage a murder-suicide and gunshot wound ballistics. They also found detailed notes mapping out the family's home and sleeping arrangements. With Hope's testimony and the forensic evidence aligned, Andrew's web of lies collapsed. The image of a grieving survivor shattered, replaced by the cold reality of a calculated killer. Unraveling Andrew's motive revealed a troubling picture of resentment and psychological turmoil. As the eldest sibling, he bore the weight of his parents' high expectations. Mark and Sarah were devoted to their children's success, homeschooling them to provide a tailored education. But for Andrew, this structured environment felt suffocating. While his siblings thrived, his academic performance plummeted, and his frustration festered into anger. Family conflicts compounded the tension. A recent incident where Sarah confronted Andrew over inappropriate online behavior left him humiliated. Instead of accepting responsibility, he withdrew further, seeing his parents as adversaries. To Andrew, every scolding and comparison to his siblings reinforced a belief that he was unloved and unwanted. Psychologists suggested that Andrew's growing isolation, combined with untreated emotional struggles, created a dangerous mix of resentment and rebellion. The lack of external support systems due to homeschooling likely exacerbated his feelings of entrapment. Experts speculated that Andrew viewed his family as the source of his failures, and that eliminating them was his twisted path to freedom. Andrew's motive wasn't a sudden burst of anger, but the result of years of internalized frustration and unaddressed psychological issues. His crime was a horrifying manifestation of a mind unraveling under pressure, leaving a once loving family shattered and a community grappling with unanswerable questions.
Every day, yeah. I just couldn't believe it. One thing after another and learning more. And it's very sad. I need some answers. Why would this happen? Why did this happen here? We will come together and we'll get all through it together. And if there's something we can do to help, then we will. It would be good for me to go.
If you're still with us, make sure to like and subscribe to keep up with more shocking true crime stories. Your support helps us bring these stories to light. Don't miss out on what's next. The legal aftermath of the Humiston tragedy became a focal point for national attention. Andrew, charged with 5 counts of first-degree aggravated murder and 1 count of attempted murder, faced the possibility of being tried as an adult. Prosecutors argued that the calculated and premeditated nature of his actions justified adult charges, emphasizing his online searches, staging of the crime scene, and attempts to frame his younger brother. The defense countered by highlighting Andrew's age, lack of prior criminal history, and possible undiagnosed mental health issues. They argued for rehabilitation over punishment, suggesting that the pressures he faced as the eldest child in a strict household contributed to his emotional breakdown. Psychological evaluations became central to the case, as experts debated whether Andrew fully understood the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, Falls City, a close-knit suburban community, struggled to process the horror that had unfolded in its midst. The Humiston family had been well regarded. Mark and Sarah were seen as devoted parents, and their children were known for their politeness and charm. The massacre shattered the illusion of safety in the idyllic lakeside neighborhood, leaving residents grappling with grief and disbelief. Vigils were held to honor the lives lost. The community came together to mourn Mark's dedication as a father, Sarah's nurturing spirit, and the bright futures of their younger children. Hope, the lone survivor, became a symbol of resilience, inspiring admiration for her bravery in escaping and recounting the horrors she witnessed. The case sparked larger conversations about mental health and family dynamics. Neighbors reflected on whether signs of Andrew's struggles were missed, and the tragedy underscored the importance of addressing emotional and psychological issues in teenagers. While the trial moved forward, the community vowed to honor the victims by fostering greater awareness and support for struggling youth. The courtroom proceedings promised to be long and complex, with debates over justice, accountability, and the balance between punishment and rehabilitation. The next court hearing, scheduled for June 2025, would determine whether Andrew would be tried as a juvenile or an adult, a decision that could drastically alter the trajectory of his life and the outcome of the case. The Humiston family tragedy is a chilling reminder of how hidden pain and unchecked emotions can lead to devastating outcomes. What began as a seemingly ordinary night in Falls City unraveled into an unimaginable nightmare, leaving a family shattered and a community in mourning. This case forces us to confront difficult questions. How could a young boy like Andrew descend into such darkness? Could anyone have noticed the warning signs or intervened in time to prevent the tragedy? And what does justice look like for a teenager who committed such heinous acts? Hope, the sole survivor, represents a beacon of resilience amidst this heartbreak. Her courage in escaping and providing a testimony that unraveled Andrew's lies ensured that the truth would not be buried. While her journey to healing will be long, her bravery offers hope that even in the darkest moments, strength can prevail. For the community of Falls City, this tragedy has left a lasting scar, but it has also ignited conversations about the importance of mental health awareness, family support, and recognizing the struggles young people may face. It serves as a stark reminder that behind closed doors, even the most idyllic-seeming families may be battling unseen storms. What could drive a teenager to commit such unthinkable acts against his own family? Was it the weight of expectations, untreated psychological struggles, or a deeper, more sinister motive? And how do we ensure justice for such a horrific crime while addressing the broader issues that may have led to it? We invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think justice should look like in this case? And how can we, as a society, work to prevent tragedies like this from happening in the future? The next case we'll be looking at is the horrific Thanksgiving family massacre of Joel and Lisa Guy.
This man, Joel Michael Guy Jr., was supposed to be spending Thanksgiving with his family, surrounded by warmth, laughter, and the promise of a bright future. But in 2016, Thanksgiving would become the day he turned his family's home into a house of horrors. Imagine this: shocking remains left on the floor, a boiling pot on the stove, and plastic tubs containing a chemical mixture with evidence of decomposition. This wasn't some random act of violence. It was cold, calculated, and chilling. How does a son become his family's destroyer? What would drive someone to murder the people who loved and supported him? This is the story of Joel Guy Jr., who turned his family's final Thanksgiving into their Last Supper, and how betrayal, greed, and violence led to one of the most horrifying crimes in Tennessee's history. Stick with us as we uncover the chilling truth behind this unimaginable act. Thanksgiving 2016 was supposed to be a peaceful family gathering. Joel Sr., 61, and Lisa, 55, had worked hard throughout their lives and were looking forward to retirement. After selling their Knoxville home, they planned to move to Surgoinsville, Tennessee. Surrounded by their children and grandchildren, they hoped to enjoy a quiet, fulfilling future. But beneath the surface, something darker was brewing. Their youngest child, Joel Michael Guy Jr., had always been distant. At 28, he was financially dependent on his parents. With no job or ambition, despite Lisa's sacrifices to support him, Joel Jr. showed little interest in connecting with anyone, even his family. As Joel Sr. and Lisa neared retirement, they decided to stop supporting Joel Jr. financially. It was a difficult decision after years of helping him, but they hoped this would encourage him to become independent. They planned to break the news during Thanksgiving, hoping family support would soften the blow. What they didn't expect was that their loving act would ignite a horrific betrayal from their son. On November 26th, just 2 days after Thanksgiving, Lisa's boss, Jennifer Whited, grew concerned when Lisa didn't show up for work. Despite repeated calls, Lisa didn't respond. Jennifer called the police for a welfare check, and what they found inside the Guy home would shock even the most seasoned investigators. It wasn't just a crime scene, it was a grotesque discovery that would become one of the most chilling cases in Tennessee's history. Joel Michael Guy Jr. was raised in a home full of love and care. His father, Joel Sr., a 61-year-old pipeline engineer, worked tirelessly to provide for his family. Despite a divorce, he maintained close relationships with his 3 daughters from his first marriage. His second wife, Lisa, 55, embraced the role of a loving stepmother, treating Joel's daughters as her own. Lisa's warmth and nurturing nature made her beloved by all. In 1988, Joel Sr. and Lisa had their only biological child, Joel Jr. But unlike his parents, Joel Jr. was distant and reclusive from an early age. Despite his mother's efforts to support him, Joel Jr. showed little interest in forming connections with anyone, even his sisters. He spent most of his life isolated within his own home. Joel Sr. and Lisa spared no expense to give Joel Jr. opportunities, hoping he would eventually find a career. After high school, he attended George Washington University and then Louisiana State University, hoping to become a plastic surgeon. But he dropped out, never earning a degree, and became entirely dependent on his parents for financial support. This arrangement continued well into his late 20s, leaving little for Lisa after paying for his lifestyle. As Joel Sr. and Lisa approached retirement, they realized they could no longer afford to support him. They decided to sell their Knoxville home and move to Surgoinsville for a quieter life. Their financial support of Joel Jr. would end, and they planned to break the news to him over Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, their well-intentioned decision would reveal a side of Joel Jr. filled with entitlement, anger, and a dangerous need for control, leading to a tragedy no one saw coming. Thanksgiving 2016 was meant to be a bittersweet occasion for Joel Sr. and Lisa Guy. After selling their Knoxville home, they were preparing to retire in Surgoinsville, Tennessee, surrounded by family and memories. This final Thanksgiving in their home should have been a celebration of family and a time to reflect on their lives together. Joel Sr.'s 3 daughters, along with their families, gathered for the holiday, but Joel Jr., typically distant, surprised everyone. He was cheerful, engaging, and even posed for family photos, a stark contrast to his usual reclusiveness. His sisters, taken aback, wondered if he was finally opening up. What they didn't know was that Joel Jr.'s new demeanor was an act. Behind his smiles, a sinister plan had been brewing for weeks. The day before Thanksgiving, he brought 2 large blue plastic tubs into the house, unnoticed by anyone. His parents had decided to wait until Christmas to tell him about their decision to cut him off financially, hoping the festive atmosphere would make the conversation easier. As the gathering ended and the family left, Joel Jr. chose to stay behind, claiming he wanted to spend more time with his parents before they moved. This seemingly innocent request would set the stage for a horrific tragedy. While outwardly calm, Joel Jr. was preparing for a crime so brutal it would leave even experienced investigators shocked. Every gesture, every smile was part of his plan to lull his family into a false sense of security. If you're finding this story captivating, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more gripping true crime content. Your support means a lot. Thank you. Behind Joel Jr.'s outwardly cheerful facade during Thanksgiving weekend, there was something far more sinister at play. What the family saw as a rare moment of connection was, in reality, part of a meticulously calculated plan, a plan that had been brewing in Joel Jr.'s mind for weeks. In fact, he had been preparing for what he considered the perfect crime. A notebook found later in his possession would become the chilling key to understanding the depths of his intentions. Prosecutors would later refer to it as the Book of Premeditation, and for good reason. In it, Joel Jr. had outlined every gruesome detail of how he would murder his parents, dismember their bodies, destroy all evidence, and stage the scene to make it appear as if his father, Joel Sr., had killed his wife Lisa in a violent rage before fleeing the scene. His plan was as cold and clinical as it was horrifying. The notebook read like a twisted blueprint for murder. It listed the supplies Joel Jr. would need: carving knives to dismember the bodies, bleach and lye to dissolve tissue, and plastic bins to contain the remains. One of the most chilling aspects of his notes was his calculation of the inheritance he would gain from their deaths. Joel Jr. believed that with both of his parents gone, he would inherit everything, including a $500,000 life insurance policy. He also thought his sisters, being stepchildren, wouldn't be entitled to any of it. The cold logic of his plan was rooted in greed and a warped sense of entitlement. Every detail was accounted for in his mind, every method to make sure his crime would go undetected. He even included explicit instructions on how to stage the scene. He planned to smear his father's DNA on his mother's body, intending to make it appear as though Joel Sr. had killed Lisa in a fit of rage before fleeing, leaving Joel Jr. as the sole beneficiary of the family's wealth. It was a twisted plan, one that he believed would absolve him of suspicion and guarantee the insurance payout. Joel Jr. didn't just fantasize about the crime, he took action. In the weeks leading up to Thanksgiving, he carefully and methodically purchased the supplies he needed. He was meticulous, always paying in cash to avoid leaving any paper trail behind. Surveillance footage would later reveal him shopping at multiple stores, purchasing items like muriatic acid, hydrogen peroxide, knives, plastic bins, and even a meat grinder. To the casual observer, it might have seemed like a typical shopping trip, but to Joel Jr., these items were the tools he needed to execute his violent vision. But despite his cold planning and attention to detail, Joel Jr. made a critical mistake. He underestimated the human element of his crime. He failed to consider the physical and emotional toll that carrying out such a heinous act would take. More than that, he overestimated his ability to cover his tracks. His arrogance and entitlement blinded him to the reality that a crime of this magnitude would leave a trail of evidence too damning to escape. And so, as Thanksgiving weekend arrived, Joel Jr. believed he had the perfect opportunity to execute his plan. With the rest of the family gone, and his parents unaware of what he had been preparing, he thought he had everything in place. The stage was set. He was ready to strike. Thanksgiving weekend of 2016 marked the final moments of normalcy for the Guy family. What began as a joyful gathering filled with family and love quickly descended into horror as Joel Jr. set his sickening plan into motion. His parents, Joel Sr. and Lisa, had no idea that this seemingly ordinary Saturday would be their last day alive. On November 26th, Lisa left the house to run errands, giving Joel Jr. the perfect opportunity to confront his father alone. Joel Sr. was in the exercise room on the second floor when Joel Jr. launched his brutal attack. The scene that followed spoke of a violent struggle. Torn blinds, blood splattered across the walls, and an overturned Bowflex machine bore witness to the desperate fight for survival. Unarmed and caught off guard, Joel Sr. stood no chance against the calculated brutality of his son. Joel Jr. stabbed him at least 42 times, with several blows delivered with such force they caused severe damage to his ribs. One stab was so violent that the knife blade snapped off and lodged into his father's muscle tissue. Despite the overwhelming attack, Joel Sr. fought back, inflicting deep lacerations on Joel Jr.'s hands, a crucial detail that would later play a key role in the investigation. As Joel Sr. lay dying, his son began to dismember his body, following the gruesome instructions from his book of premeditation. Joel Jr. removed his father's arms at the shoulders, his hands at the wrists, and his legs at the hips. He left parts of his father's body on the floor of the exercise room, a grotesque and chilling sight for investigators who would later uncover the scene. The horror was only beginning. Lisa returned home shortly after completing her errands. She walked through the front door, casually placing her groceries on the floor of the foyer, completely unaware of the chaos unfolding upstairs. As she climbed the stairs, Joel Jr. ambushed her, stabbing her repeatedly in the back. Unlike his father, Lisa had no chance to fight back. She was stabbed at least 31 times, with 21 of the wounds classified as severe. 9 of her ribs were completely removed in the attack, and the force of the blows was so intense that her head was nearly removed from her body. The brutality of the murder was unimaginable. Joel Jr. then proceeded to dismember his mother's body. He removed her legs below the knees and her arms at the shoulders, leaving behind a scene of unspeakable carnage. Her head, however, would become the centerpiece of his twisted plan. Joel Jr. placed Lisa's head into a pot on the stove, setting it to boil in what prosecutors would later describe as a diabolical stew of human remains. The rest of her body parts, along with her husband's, were submerged in a chemical solution inside large plastic bins. Joel Jr. believed the chemicals would dissolve the evidence of his crime, but his lack of experience and carelessness would ultimately leave behind a scene that was both horrific and incriminating. Despite his detailed preparations, Joel Jr.'s plan began to unravel almost immediately. The violent struggle with his father had left him with deep cuts on his hands, injuries that needed immediate attention. Instead of continuing with his cleanup and staging the crime scene, Joel Jr. drove to a nearby Walmart to buy bandages, ointments, and other first aid supplies. Surveillance footage would later capture his movements, placing him at the scene of the crime during the critical hours after the murders. Exhausted, injured, and increasingly frantic, Joel Jr. left the crime scene in disarray. He turned the house's central heating up to maximum, hoping to accelerate the decomposition of the bodies. But his rush and carelessness led to a chaotic and incomplete cleanup. Despite his best attempts, the overwhelming physical evidence, combined with his visible injuries, set the stage for his eventual capture. Lisa Guy's absence from work on Monday, November 28, 2016, raised immediate concern. Her boss, Jennifer Whited, knew something was terribly wrong. Lisa was one of the most reliable employees, never missing work and always checking in. When she didn't show up that morning, Jennifer's instinct told her that something was amiss. The groceries still sitting inside the house and Lisa's sudden disappearance heightened her concern. Jennifer immediately contacted the authorities and requested a welfare check at the Guy family's Knoxville home. When the Knox County Sheriff's deputies arrived, the house appeared unremarkable at first glance. A for sale sign stood proudly in the yard, signaling the family's upcoming move to Surgoinsville, Tennessee. It seemed like an ordinary home in the middle of a quiet neighborhood, but as deputies got closer, subtle signs began to raise suspicions. The back door's doorknob had been removed and reattached to the front door, an odd modification that suggested tampering. Peering through the windows, officers could see groceries scattered across the foyer floor, items that clearly hadn't been unpacked, a clear sign that something wasn't right. As they looked through the hole where the back doorknob should have been, officers noticed an unnatural heat radiating from the house. A strange chemical odor filled the air, adding to the unease building in their minds. Unable to gain entry through the front or back door, the deputies discovered an unlocked vehicle in the driveway. Inside the car, they found a garage door opener, which they used to access the house. What they found inside the Guy home was nothing short of a nightmare. The house was thick with the overpowering stench of decomposition and chemicals. Blood was visible on the walls and carpet as they ascended the stairs, each step taking them deeper into the horror that awaited them. A barking dog could be heard somewhere in the house, its distress adding to the already eerie atmosphere. The first discovery upstairs stopped the deputies cold. Joel Sr.'s shocking remains lying on the floor. It was an image so grotesque, it immediately told them that something far worse had happened in this home than anyone could have imagined. Further exploration led them to the bathroom, where two large blue plastic bins were submerged in a corrosive solution. Inside the bins, they found the remains of both Joel Sr. and Lisa, dissolved in the chemical mixture. The stench from the bins was overpowering, and it seemed to soak into the very air around them. The stove downstairs was still on, a pot boiling away atop it. Investigators approached the stove with caution, dreading what they might find. Inside the pot, investigators uncovered what appeared to be part of Lisa's remains, subjected to a horrifying process. The sight was enough to freeze anyone in their tracks. The house was filled with other macabre evidence: tools, cleaning supplies, and chemical containers scattered throughout the rooms. A sledgehammer, carving knives, bottles of bleach, muriatic acid, and drain opener were among the items that littered the scene. The most chilling discovery was Joel Jr.'s notebook, found inside a backpack. The notebook revealed every horrific step of Joel Jr.'s plan, from the murder weapons he needed to buy, to the methods of dissolving his parents' bodies, to how he intended to stage the scene to make it look like a murder-suicide carried out by his father. Given the hazardous chemicals involved, the hazmat team from the Knox County Sheriff's Department was called in to process the scene. Forensics teams worked tirelessly for over 24 hours, cataloging the overwhelming evidence. Among the most significant finds was a suitcase containing receipts and notes linking Joel Jr. to his recent purchases of the chemicals and tools that were used in the murders. As investigators pieced together the timeline, they learned that Joel Jr. had spent Sunday treating the injuries he sustained during the violent struggle with his father. His injuries, combined with the forensic evidence left behind, provided key evidence that directly connected him to the murders. If you're still with us, make sure to like and subscribe to keep up with more shocking true crime stories. Your support helps us bring these stories to light. Don't miss out on what's next. 3 days after the discoveries in the Guy family home, authorities traced the evidence to Joel Jr. Surveillance footage and receipts linked him to the purchases used in the murders, and the notebook recovered from the crime scene solidified their case. A joint task force from the FBI, Knox County Sheriff's Office, and East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office placed Joel Jr. under surveillance. On November 29, 2016, Joel Jr. was arrested outside his Baton Rouge apartment. In his car, investigators found a KitchenAid meat grinder, confirming that he intended further dismemberment. His calm demeanor during the arrest contrasted sharply with the brutal nature of his crimes. Deep cuts on his hands, matching those from his struggle with his father, were documented during booking. Joel Jr. was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of abuse of a corpse. Despite overwhelming evidence, he pleaded not guilty and even requested the death penalty if convicted. The prosecution chose life imprisonment without parole, deeming it a more fitting punishment for his crimes. Joel Jr.'s defense team argued the search of the Guy home was illegal, but the judge dismissed the claim, ruling that Joel Jr. had no privacy in a house he no longer resided in. The judge also pointed to exigent circumstances, such as the missing persons report and the smell of decomposition, to justify the search. The case against Joel Jr. was airtight. The evidence, his detailed notebook, surveillance footage, tools found at the scene, and his injuries, painted a clear picture of premeditated murder. The trial, set for September 28, 2020, was poised to become one of the most chilling courtroom proceedings in Knoxville's history, ensuring justice for the victims of Joel Jr.'s betrayal. Joel Guy Jr.'s trial began on September 28, 2020, after nearly 4 years of investigation. Prosecutors Leslie Nacios and Hector Sanchez framed the case around greed, entitlement, and a meticulously planned double murder. The most damning evidence was Joel Jr.'s book of premeditation, found at the crime scene. The notebook detailed his plan to murder his parents, dismember their bodies, dissolve the remains in chemicals, and set the house on fire to cover his tracks. It was chilling proof of premeditation, greed, and utter lack of remorse. Security footage showed Joel Jr. buying the necessary supplies, knives, chemicals, and bins, all paid for in cash to avoid a paper trail. The receipts and footage provided a clear timeline linking him to the crime. The court played body cam footage of the horrific crime scene, showing boiling remains on the stove, fragments of human remains in chemical tubs, and blood spattered throughout the house. Jurors were visibly disturbed by the graphic evidence. Joel Jr.'s defense presented no significant evidence and relied on technical arguments, questioning the legality of the search. His smug, indifferent demeanor further alienated him from the jury. Emotional testimonies from his half-sisters described his emotional isolation and manipulative behavior, including his sudden cheerful demeanor before the murders. The medical examiner's testimony highlighted the brutal injuries inflicted on Michael and Lisa Guy, making it clear that both victims suffered intensely before their deaths. In the prosecution's closing, Hector Sanchez summed up the case. This wasn't an act of passion or rage, it was an act of greed, plain and simple. After just 3 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted Joel Jr. on all counts, including premeditated murder and abuse of a corpse. On October 2, 2020, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole, ensuring he would never again harm anyone. Joel Jr.'s conviction brought a sense of justice to a case that left a lasting impact. For the surviving Guy family members, the verdict was bittersweet. While Joel Jr. would never harm again, the horror of his actions and the absence of Michael and Lisa would never fully heal. Their loss left an undeniable void. Joel Jr. is serving life without parole at the Northwest Correctional Complex. His notoriety stems not from brilliance, but from the shocking audacity of his crimes. The notebook he left behind remains a chilling reminder of his premeditated plan. In April 2023, Joel Jr. appealed his conviction, arguing that the search of his parents' home violated his rights. However, the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals rejected his appeal, affirming that the brutality of his actions severed any claim to privacy. The ruling brought relief to the Guy family and the community, ensuring that Joel Jr. would face lifelong imprisonment. The case's aftermath reaches beyond the trial, where Lisa's co-workers, her sudden disappearance, and the horrific discovery still haunt them. Jennifer Whited, Lisa's boss, played a pivotal role in initiating the welfare check, ensuring justice began. The Guy family's former home, once a place of warmth, now serves as a symbol of tragedy. Though sold, its dark history lingers, casting a shadow over the neighborhood. The case remains a chilling example of greed and betrayal, igniting broader discussions about enabling behavior and family dynamics. Michael and Lisa's unconditional love for their son ultimately led to their demise. The story continues to resonate in true crime discussions, serving as a grim reminder that even the closest bonds can shatter under the weight of greed. The tragedy of Michael and Lisa Guy is more than a crime, it's a reflection on trust's fragility and the destructive consequences of unchecked entitlement. The murders, carried out by their own son, are incomprehensible and leave behind a legacy of pain, unanswered questions, and shattered lives. We're left grappling with how someone so loved and supported could commit such monstrous acts. Joel Jr.'s story forces us to confront the darker sides of human nature, the greed, dependency, and delusion that can hide behind seemingly normal lives. For the surviving family members, there is no true closure. While justice was served, the emotional scars of this crime will last a lifetime. The memory of Michael and Lisa lives on in the hearts of those who knew them, a couple whose lives were cut short by their devotion to a son who saw their love as a means to an end. This case is more than just a true crime. It's a cautionary tale. It teaches us the importance of boundaries and recognizing when love turns into enabling behavior. It reminds us to stay vigilant, even with those closest to us. As we close this chapter, we reflect on the love of Michael and Lisa Guy. Strong, but tragically eclipsed by betrayal. Their story serves as both a warning and a tribute to the strength of family bonds. Thank you for joining us in uncovering the chilling details of this case.
And finally, the last case for today is the Candy Family Massacre, a chilling true crime case that happened in 2024. This man, Jonathan Candy, was the person his neighbors described as goofy, helpful, and a devoted father. The kind of man who'd lend you a hand, crack a joke, and talk about how his family was his entire world. But on the night of April 22, 2024, that image was shattered forever. Imagine this, a quiet cul-de-sac in Yukon, Oklahoma, where the Candy family lived in what appeared to be a perfect home. Inside were warm family dinners, laughing kids, and a loving couple. But beneath that picture-perfect exterior, something no one could have predicted was brewing. The next morning, a 10-year-old boy, still rubbing the sleep from his eyes, stepped out of his room, expecting another normal day. What he found instead was a nightmare beyond comprehension. The silence of his house wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. As he moved through the hallways, his family lay still, lifeless. His father, his mother, his 3 older brothers, gone. Shaking, confused, and terrified, the boy managed to call 911. "I think my family is dead." His voice trembled as he unknowingly became the lone survivor of a crime so horrific it shook an entire community. This isn't the story of a random tragedy. It's a story of betrayal from within, of hidden struggles, and unanswered questions. How could a man who was supposed to protect his family become the very force that destroyed it? Why did he spare one child while taking the lives of everyone else? Stay with us as we unravel the haunting story of the Candy family massacre. A story that leaves us questioning just how much we truly know about the people we hold closest to our hearts. The Candy family seemed to embody the American dream: loving parents, talented children, and a home filled with laughter. At the center of this seemingly perfect picture was Jonathan Candy, a 42-year-old father known for his goofy, kind-hearted nature. Friends described him as the helpful neighbor, the guy who'd crack jokes, mow your lawn without being asked, and brighten your day. Jonathan worked part-time at Oklahoma City's Paycom Center, where co-workers admired his cheerful, light-hearted demeanor and reliable work ethic. A man who wore his heart on his sleeve, Jonathan deeply loved his family and made sure everyone around him knew it. Beside him was Lindsay Candy, 39, the heart and soul of the family. Raised in Prague, Oklahoma, Lindsay was a joyful and nurturing woman remembered for her radiant smile, kindness, and infectious laughter. She spent her childhood singing in the church choir and making lifelong friends who still recall her playful spirit. As a mother, Lindsay poured every ounce of her love into raising her 4 boys. Friends described her as fiercely devoted, creating a home filled with warmth, love, and unwavering support for her children.
Him and his kids seemed like they always got along. He just was just a family man. I mean, I never expected this. We were just in total shock. Yeah. The kids were real friendly. Everybody here loved the kids. Swam here at his house regularly. They played with my dog.
Like we have families down here that they work, and he'd come over and mow their lawns and take.
Together, Jonathan and Lindsay built a life that radiated happiness. To friends, neighbors, and co-workers, they were the family at the end of the cul-de-sac, the ones you admired for their togetherness and kindness. Their 4 boys were the heart of their world, each with a unique personality and bright future. Dylan, 18, was a talented musician attending Oklahoma Baptist University, where he played bass drum in the Bison Brigade. Always cheerful and hardworking, he inspired those around him. Ethan, 14, a 9th grader and standout baseball player, was affectionately nicknamed Candyman. Known for his energy and bright smile, he brought life to every room. Lucas, 12, was a curious and kind 6th grader who loved playing outdoors and making friends. The youngest, 10 years old, was a quiet, sweet child who adored his family and would become the sole survivor of an unimaginable tragedy. To outsiders, the Candy family was perfect, a family that laughed together, supported one another, and lit up their community. Their Facebook pages were filled with smiling photos, family trips, milestones, and moments of joy. Friends and neighbors saw a family to admire: Jonathan, the devoted father, Lindsay, the loving mother, and 4 boys who filled their lives with promise and joy. But behind closed doors, something dark was brewing, something no one saw coming. On April 22, 2024, the illusion of the perfect family shattered, and what unfolded in their quiet home left an entire community in shock, asking how a family so bright could fall so tragically into darkness. The night of April 22, 2024, started like any other for the Candy family. Dinner was likely shared, routines followed, and laughter may have lingered in their quiet Yukon, Oklahoma home. Jonathan Candy, the father known for his goofy charm and love for his family, showed no outward signs of what was to come. Earlier that week, Jonathan had been working at the Paycom Center during a Thunder NBA playoff game, joking with coworkers as usual. To those around him, he was his normal self. No signs of stress, no indication of the darkness brewing beneath the surface. But sometime that night, everything changed. Investigators believe an argument may have erupted between Jonathan and Lindsay, though the trigger remains a mystery. What happened next was deliberate and chilling. As his family slept, Jonathan grabbed a firearm and moved methodically through the house, hunting them down. Two of the boys, Ethan and Lucas, were found upstairs, likely caught off guard in their sleep. Lindsay and Dylan were discovered downstairs, evidence suggesting Jonathan pursued his family across the home. There were no signs of a struggle, no overturned furniture, no chance to escape. The youngest Candy boy, just 10 years old, remained asleep in his room. The noise of a box fan shielded him from the horrors unfolding nearby. He would later recall hearing the fire alarm, but in his innocence, he drifted back to sleep. When Jonathan's rampage ended, he turned the gun on himself, leaving behind a house once filled with warmth, now silent and stained by unimaginable loss. As morning broke on April 23rd, the 10-year-old boy woke to a heavy silence. Something felt wrong. Stepping out of his room, he was met with a sight no child should ever face. Terrified and alone, he summoned the strength to call 911, his small voice breaking as he said, "I think my family is dead." The Candy family's final night ended in devastation, leaving behind a shattered family and a tragedy no one saw coming. At 9:30 a.m. on April 23, 2024, a quiet cul-de-sac in Yukon, Oklahoma, was disrupted by the sound of sirens. A terrified 10-year-old had called 911. When police arrived at the Candy home, nothing outside hinted at the horror within. The "for sale" sign in the yard was an eerie reminder of a future that would never come. Officers entered through the unlocked door, immediately struck by a heavy, unnatural stillness and the sharp smell of gunpowder. Downstairs, they found Lindsay Candy, her lifeless body marking the start of Jonathan Candy's deadly rampage. Nearby lay 18-year-old Dylan, the eldest son, hunted down with cold precision. Upstairs, the nightmare deepened. In their bedrooms were Ethan, 14, and Lucas, 12, both shot at close range. No signs of struggle, no overturned furniture. Jonathan had methodically pursued his family, leaving them no chance to react. Finally, the man responsible was found nearby, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, the weapon still close to his body. Ballistic evidence would later prove that the same firearm had been used in all the killings. Amid the devastation, one question loomed: why was the 10-year-old spared? His room remained untouched, the noise of his box fan masking the chaos unfolding just beyond his door. Investigators speculated: was it guilt, a moment of hesitation, or pure chance? For first responders hardened by years of experience, the scene was incomprehensible. Sergeant Gary Knight of the Oklahoma City Police described it as nothing short of a massacre.
At this point, I just wish the nightmare would be over. I wish it was all a bad dream, and that we would wake up and that they would still be here.
News of the tragedy spread quickly, leaving the community in shock. Neighbors, friends, and coaches who had known the family only days before struggled to make sense of what had happened. The Candy home, once filled with laughter, music, and warmth, now stood surrounded by crime scene tape, a chilling monument to an unthinkable act. For the brave 10-year-old who made that call, the house would never again be home. If you're finding this story captivating, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more gripping true crime content. Your support means a lot. Thank you. Why did Jonathan Candy, a man known for his humor and devotion to his family, commit such an unthinkable act? There were no reports of financial struggles, domestic violence, or mental health issues. To the outside world, the Candy family was picture perfect. The most puzzling aspect of the tragedy was Jonathan's decision to spare his youngest son. Was it a moment of guilt, clarity, or simply chance? Experts suggest Jonathan's logic may have been distorted in his final moments, believing he was saving his son. Others argue the boy, shielded by the noise of a fan and a closed door, may have survived by pure circumstance. Jonathan's motive remains a mystery. No note, no warning signs, no clear answers. The truth died with him, leaving behind a lingering question. How could a man so loved commit an act so dark? The Candy family's tragedy reminds us of the unsettling truth. Sometimes there are no explanations for the unthinkable. In the aftermath of the tragedy, one glimmer of light emerged. The Candy family's youngest son, just 10 years old, survived. Investigators believe the boy slept through the massacre, his door closed, and his fan muffling the sounds. Jonathan Candy's decision to spare him remains a mystery. Was it guilt, a final moment of clarity, or pure chance? Now, under the care of relatives and surrounded by community support, the boy faces a long road to healing. A GoFundMe campaign was created to provide for his counseling, education, and future needs. His survival stands as a testament to quiet bravery in the face of unimaginable loss. The news of the Candy family tragedy sent shockwaves through Yukon, Oklahoma, leaving friends, neighbors, and the broader community in disbelief. For those who knew Jonathan, Lindsay, Dylan, Ethan, and Lucas, the loss felt surreal. This was a family that brought smiles to baseball fields, marching band rehearsals, and neighborhood gatherings. At a vigil, Ethan's baseball coach tearfully described him as the light of the room, while Dylan's bandmates honored him with a memorial display of his bass drum, symbols of the joy they once shared. Lucas, the youngest victim, was remembered for his kindness and playful energy, always seen laughing with friends. Lindsay, described as the heart of the family, was cherished for her fierce love for her boys and her infectious laughter that brightened every room. Amid the grief, the community rallied around the sole surviving son. Donations poured in through a GoFundMe campaign to support his future needs, funeral expenses, counseling, and education. His uncle expressed deep gratitude, writing, "The real work begins now, and this boy's healing is our priority." While the investigation concluded, it left behind more questions than answers. With no evidence of prior struggles, no domestic disputes, financial hardships, or visible mental health concerns, Jonathan's actions defied explanation. Mental health experts emphasize that emotional distress can remain hidden behind smiles and normal routines, especially in men who may struggle to express their pain. Forensic psychologists stress the importance of breaking the stigma around mental health. Jonathan's unraveling, whether from hidden struggles or a sudden crisis, highlights the critical need for open conversations and accessible support. Tragedies like this remind us how vital it is to check in on loved ones, recognize subtle signs of distress, and encourage professional help before it's too late. In the wake of this devastating loss, the community grieves but also reflects. The Candy family's story serves as both a heartbreaking reminder of life's fragility and a call to prioritize mental health awareness. For friends and family, the unanswered why lingers like a shadow. But as they hold on to memories of Jonathan, Lindsay, Dylan, Ethan, and Lucas, they find strength in honoring their lives and supporting the boy who remains, a living testament to resilience amid unimaginable loss. If you're still with us, make sure to like and subscribe to keep up with more shocking true crime stories. Your support helps us bring these stories to light. Don't miss out on what's next. Even as the investigation concluded, one haunting question lingers. Why? Why would Jonathan Candy, a man described as loving and devoted, choose to destroy everything he held dear? There were no clear warning signs, no history of domestic violence, financial strain, or mental health diagnoses. Friends and neighbors saw a man who adored his family and brought laughter wherever he went. Social media painted the same picture: family trips, celebrations, and smiling faces. Yet, on April 22nd, something snapped, leaving devastation in its wake. Investigators combed through Jonathan's life but found no answers, no note, no sudden changes in behavior, no evidence of a breaking point. Experts theorize that Jonathan may have suffered an undiagnosed mental health crisis. In such moments, distorted reasoning can push individuals to unimaginable acts. The decision to spare his youngest son deepens the mystery. Was it an intentional choice, fueled by guilt or love, or was it pure chance? Jonathan took the truth with him, leaving behind a shattered family and a community grasping for closure. For the surviving son, the weight of this tragedy and the absence of answers will shape his path forward. For the rest of us, the Candy family story serves as a chilling reminder that even the brightest lives can hide unseen struggles. The why may never be answered, but it leaves us haunted by how easily hidden struggles can go unnoticed. The Candy family tragedy forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Unseen struggles can spiral into darkness, even in families that appear picture perfect. Jonathan Candy was known as a kind father, a devoted husband, and a reliable friend. Yet behind closed doors, something broke, shattering his family and community forever. Mental health crises don't always manifest as visible sadness. They can appear as isolation, anger, or quiet desperation, signs that are often overlooked or dismissed. This tragedy underscores the importance of paying attention, breaking the stigma, and encouraging open conversations about mental health. Sometimes the smallest gesture, listening, checking in, offering support, can be life-saving. The youngest son, spared from the tragedy, is now a testament to resilience. Though he faces an unimaginable loss, the love and support surrounding him provide a glimmer of hope. His story reminds us that healing is possible, even in the face of unbearable grief. The heartbreaking story of the Candy family leaves us with more questions than answers, but it also carries a powerful lesson. The battles people face are not always visible. Moments of crisis can unravel everything, leaving devastation that ripples through families and communities. Let this serve as a reminder to hold your loved ones close. Reach out to those who seem fine. They might be silently struggling. Prioritize mental health, both for yourself and for others. There is no shame in asking for help or offering it to those who need it. Sometimes a single conversation, a check-in, or a small act of kindness can save a life. Take time today to hug your family tighter. Say the things you've been meaning to say. Life is fragile, and we never know when a moment might be our last. Thank you for joining us in uncovering the chilling details of this case. If this story has left you disturbed or reflective, please share your thoughts and reflections. Remember to like, subscribe, and stay with us as we continue to explore the stories that reveal the darkest sides of human behavior. Together, we keep these lessons alive, ensuring the voices of victims are never forgotten. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe or follow.